Okay, so let's be honest. We're all chasing something, right? A better job, a deeper sense of purpose, just success. But what if I told you that the way we've all been taught to get there is, well, completely wrong? What if that whole race for rewards and recognition is actually a trap? One that's keeping us from the very fulfillment we're looking for? This quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? George Leonard talks about being seduced by the siren song, and that's exactly what it feels like. We get drawn to all the shiny objects that look like success. You know, the promotions, the nice stuff, the praise from others. But so often it just ends up being hollow. Just an illusion, leaving us feeling kind of empty. So to really dig into this whole idea, we're going to look at the work of Jim Murphy and his incredible book, Inner Excellence. He lays out this amazing framework for shifting our focus away from all that outside noise and toward our inner world, because he argues that's where real, sustainable high performance actually comes from. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about the trap of more. Then, we'll get real about the monster of self. From there, we'll explore the path to self-actualization, and we'll wrap it all up with a toolkit for love, wisdom, and courage. Okay, let's jump right in. Section 1, the trap of more. I mean, just think about it for a second. Our whole culture pretty much screams at us that success is all about the external stuff, right? More money, the next promotion, a bigger house. From the time we're kids, we're basically trained to look outside ourselves for validation.
This is where it gets really personal, because the author himself lived this. Jim Murphy was a young baseball player for the Chicago Cubs, and his entire life, his whole sense of self-worth, was tied to his batting average. Seriously. If he got a hit, he was on top of the world. If he struck out, his whole world just felt dark. He was, in his own words, a slave to the results, and that emotional roller coaster, it completely crushed his performance and, maybe even worse, his love for the game. I don't know about you, but that sounds painfully familiar.
So this really brings us to a choice, a fundamental one, that the book calls the two paths. On one hand, you've got the popular road. It's wide, it's paved, it's easy, and it's lined with all those external rewards. But then you have the other path, the narrow road. It's rocky, it's difficult, it's a real challenge. But here's the thing, it's the only one that leads to deep, genuine, lasting fulfillment.
Okay, so if we know that narrow road is where we want to be, what's stopping us? Why is it so hard to take? Well, that brings us right into our second section, the monster of self. See, the book makes this really powerful argument that our biggest obstacle, it's not your boss, it's not your competition, it's not the economy. Nope, the real monster is the one living inside your own head.
And what is that monster? It's self-centeredness. Now hold on, let's be really clear here. This is not about being selfish or a bad person. It's more like a default setting in our brains. It's this constant focus on me, my performance, my goals, what people think of me. And that focus acts like a pair of blinders. It just shrinks our world and makes every tiny setback feel like a total catastrophe.
And here's the real kicker. When everything we do is filtered through this lens of me and my past experiences, we just get stuck. It's like we're running on old, outdated software, the program of who we were, not who we could be. That deep attachment to our own story, our own ego, is the very thing that chains us down and keeps us from growing.
All right, so if the problem is inside us, it makes sense that the solution has to be too. And that's what brings us to Section 3, the path to self-actualization. This is where we pivot from the problem to the solution, and it's built on some really groundbreaking research that completely flips psychology on its head.
A lot of this comes from the work of psychiatrist Abraham Maslow, and what Maslow did was so cool. See, instead of studying what was wrong with people, he decided to study what was right with them. He looked at these amazing, extraordinarily healthy, creative, and fulfilled people. We're talking folks like Einstein and Eleanor Roosevelt, and he tried to figure out what they all had in common. And the name he gave them? Self-actualizers. So what did these people do differently? Well, Maslow found a bunch of traits, but we can really boil them down to 3 key elements. First up is total absorption. You know that feeling of being so lost in something that you forget yourself completely? That's it. Second, they made growth choices. Over and over, they chose risk and progress instead of just staying safe and comfortable. And third, and this one is huge, a lack of ego defenses. They had the guts to just drop the act, to tear down those walls we all build to protect our image. Okay, that brings us to our final section, and this is where we get super practical. We're going to take all of those big psychological ideas and translate them into a simple, powerful toolkit. Section 4, love, wisdom, and courage. So, love, wisdom, and courage. These aren't just, fuzzy feel-good words. They're the actual practical antidote to that monster of self we talked about. Think of them as the gear you need to start walking down that narrow, more fulfilling path.
It all starts with love. And no, we're not talking about romance here. This is about leading from your heart. It's about connecting with your deep personal why, the reason you do what you do. Because when you can really tap into that, a job isn't just a job anymore. It becomes your passion.
Okay, next up, we've got wisdom. This is all about zooming out, getting outside of your own little world. It's about taking that passion you just found and connecting it to a bigger picture, something that serves more than just yourself. And that is the magic moment when your passion really evolves into a powerful sense of purpose.
And the third piece of the puzzle is courage. Now, in this way of thinking, courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being fully present. It's the ability to engage with what's happening right now, without getting hijacked by regrets about the past or anxiety about the future. And when you can do that, that courage transforms into poise, that calm, focused, in-the-zone performance right when you need it most.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? Honestly, it's a total flip of how we usually think about success. We spend our lives chasing extraordinary performance, hoping that it'll lead to an extraordinary life. But what inner excellence teaches us is that it's actually the other way around. You have to focus first on creating an extraordinary experience of life through that presence, that passion, that purpose, and you'll find that extraordinary performance just follows. It becomes the natural result.
And that leaves us with one final question for you to really think about. Remember that second element of self-actualization we talked about, making growth choices instead of fear choices? Well, here it is. What is the one growth choice, and it can be big or small, that you can make today to start stepping onto that more fulfilling path?